Oh, yeah. Dun, 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 dun. All right, let's get to work, man. We got a lot of stuff to do. All right, let's take a look at the general market here real quick. See what's going on. So after that big, we got a little nasty dump, right? A little nasty dump in the markets. End of the day, we had a half day, so you got to remember that. But we had a big kind of flush into the close, which is actually super natural when you think about it. Like when you're trending like this, like everything works, you know, you're going to have nice, easy plays, mostly up days. But once you start breaking back under these kind of moving averages over here, you know, what's happening now is you're just stuck in a range. So like, see how you're getting like one big red day, one green day, one red day, right? So the market gets more choppy when it acts like that because you're stuck underneath, you know, multiple moving averages. And when you're stuck in between support and resistance, you don't really have anywhere to go. You know, big part of trading is being clear, like being up in air. That's why like stocks that are breaking out to all-time highs or stocks that are breaking out the 52-week highs, they work so well because there's no resistance overhead. And right now, kind of what we're getting here, because we're sandwiched in between our 50 SMA and our 9 EMA, 20 SMA, you're just kind of stuck right in between. And so you're going to get that. Like after your dump, right, we've already kind of pre-market started to trend up in the market. So like in days like this, you got to be a little bit quicker. And you got to look for really let the trend set because the market will be choppy where you'll get, you know, a spike up and then a down and a spike up till this range resolves itself. And then things will be really a lot easier. But when you're into this kind of action where you're essentially just, you know, we call that the right penis in between us essentially. You've got to kind of play it a little bit light because you don't necessarily know which way the market's going to fold. You'll get one, you know, one green day, one red day, you know, so on and so forth. There are some gappers at the play today that I think are going to be decent. And so we'll kind of dig into some of these today, especially when the market gets dicey. Playing stocks that are in play that have fresh news out can be good. This DFBG is kind of coming off this bounce, and it has a big gap up, 10 million share float. You know, this thing could get going. Now, look, something like this stock's going to be really just a big, gigantic turdzilla. Most likely it's worth zero. So, like, you can't go into the hole and just buy it. You've got to wait for really a picture-perfect setup. If you're going to play it, I tend to stay away from names like this because it will dump out of nowhere. You know, you can see like after the last big day, right? It kind of, the next day is dumped out of nowhere. So these are just day trades, right? You want to be quick with these. If you see a setup, you can take it, but don't marry them. This ISCA is kind of busting out the new highs over here. You can see pre-market, it's already starting to trend. This is the International Speedway, but I like stocks like this. You can see even on like a weekly time frame. Notice how it's breaking highs that it hasn't seen in years, right? And so when you've got new highs, all-time highs, that's when something can really get going. So when you get something like this, now that it's gapped up, right, there's only two plays that we can do at the open on something like this. It's either going to gap up and ORB and we're going to hit the flag, or it's going to gap up, pull back to that 9 EMA, and then go. Those are the only two options. And then later in the day, you want to do your kind of afternoon setups to get this thing going. But this one, as long as the liquidity is there, it's going to be good. Now, the thing with this one is I usually won't hit them unless I see at least 500, 600,000 shares in volume come off at the open. If they don't do that, I typically leave them alone. So that's just something always to kind of think about. Thanks, Sandra. This is my summer beach hat. ZYNE. So this one's getting smoked out in some type of, you know, FDA news or something like that. But you got a trend line break over here that looks pretty solid. This one will have a good range on it. So I'll be looking to potentially short this thing, you know, if it sets up intraday. And then Mr. Mello, one of my mentorship guys, he sent me this OSTK. This thing was on fire on Friday. This one moves really, really well. And also, if you think about like, you know, if you think about like the action in Bitcoin itself, so like it typically has been running a little bit with the cryptocurrencies. You know, you're starting to see a little bit of rounding in in some of the cryptocurrencies as you kind of come out of that trend line break. And so as this thing has come out of its trend line break, you may see some action come into a name like an OSTK, because that's kind of how it started to run. So I'd keep an eye on this one. It's got a crazy good range. And this is the type of pattern like we like to see at the open, right? It's like you gap up and then, right, you build a consolidation and then you bust out of it. Well, that's awesome, right? That's what we want to see. We want to see that type of follow through and really, really simple patterns at the open that give us range. Because, you know, even though it's 40 bucks, if you have 200, 300 shares and it can rip $2, $3, you know, you're in really good shape. On the short side, non-gappers, I've got this WUBA on watch list for a potential short. You can see here on the daily chart, you're really testing a level, some levels of support. This is a long-term rollover pattern. And when you get a long-term rollover pattern, right, when you start to break those levels of support, you can really get smoked out. This one's got a crazy good range on it too. It went green to red on Friday, Tuesday, and it really trended down the whole day. So when you're looking at the open and it's a non-gapper, there's only 3 setups you can do, you know, on something like this. If it goes green to red, meaning it gaps up and then it goes red, you can take that trade. If it spikes down at the open and goes sideways, you can ORB it. Or if it spikes down at the open and goes to your 9 EMA, you could take that as a short too. But overall, that looks pretty good. I'm eyeballing this WTW for a swing trade in my swing account. This would be more of a pulsing special. But this one looks pretty good. You know, this is a Oprah Winfrey play. Man, she must have loaded this thing at what, like 10 bucks? But it's been on a rampage the last couple years. It's got a tiny float on it. When it really moves, it does pretty good. I won't day trade this one just due to the lack of liquidity. When something does, you know, on average, if it's doing $1 million, $2 million, that's fine. But if it's going into like the 300, 400,000 like it was on Tuesday, not my cup of tea. But Tuesday was a half day, right? So its volume was essentially cut in half. So, you know, you have to kind of extrapolate it and use a little bit of common sense and say, you know, maybe it was doing $1 mil. So that'll be okay all day. Yo, how was how was Atlantic City? I got this Urban on watch for a potential swing too. This thing is coming right out of nice range here. So you've got a flag pattern that's developing. If it can break this trend line, this thing could run for the next couple of weeks. It's got a beautiful trend on it. That consolidation, I think, is allowed it to rest. I won't day trade this one either for the simple fact that retail stocks suck to day trade. Never had any good luck with them. They just move a little bit slower. But look, if something moves 2-3% a day for 10-15 days, you're good to go. SRPT, this one, I've been just stalking this thing for now days. You can see like you build in a range right here that if it can kind of bust loose on it, that's a 30-minute chart. If it can bust loose on that range, this thing's got tons of upside. 177 was so high, so you got $20, $30 to get this thing going. The big thing with this one will be liquidity too. It's got a Gunnar spread on it, and so if you can't, if you see a big spread and no volume, you got to leave it alone. But I think this one's going to have some upside to it. And once it starts to actually break and starts to trend on shorter term time frames, you're definitely going to see buyers come into that bad boy. And then I'm watching this SQ for potential short too if the market gets nasty. You know, it keeps fading off at these MAs right here. You know, anytime it has a green day, it kind of comes right back into resistance and fades off. If we need a short, I'll look at this one as it's just essentially bear flagging. It's got enough liquidity and enough range to kind of take some good shorts on it. Roku, this was the one, this was a good mover on Friday. You can tell like the way this thing has rebounded and it's holding up over its levels. You know, I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing attack all-time highs over the next 1 month, 2 months. It's looking pretty good as of the moment. So, you know, pre-market's already holding up. You know, watch that previous high from the previous day. That would be 46.75-ish. If it busts up open, ORBs, we can take that for a potential long. or we'll be watching the dips on that one. But overall, this one's got a good structure to it at 12 million shares in volume on a half day. That's pretty good. So you can see this white line's like your daily average volume. So you almost doubled it. That's going to be pretty good. Hey, Chippy, what's up, baby? All day, what'd you get into on the 4th of July, my friend? MU, this thing had some news out, some Chinese news that the Asians were doing some type of injunction on it. Now it looks like the news is out that they're fighting it, but we'll have to watch this thing. It's going to be stuck in this kind of range over here. But if you see that the news today get faded off, don't be surprised if this thing attacks yesterday's lows and starts making its run back into the 40s. You know, it had some heavy selling on Friday, and this was a pretty big dump. And all these Chinese stocks are essentially just kind of bear flagging along. You know, the Chinese markets in general look nasty. So we'll have to kind of keep an eye on these because, you know, we may get some good shorts out of it. You can see this is FXI. That's your Chinese ETF. I mean, that thing is on a straight down path, but it's not even oversold, so you don't necessarily think that it might even bounce. So I'd keep a whole list of these. So I got Momo, IQ, Huya, and Bazoon on my list for potential shorts for Chinese stocks if you start to see them roll over. And Billy, too. This one's easier to borrow. The Huya and IQ have been HTB for me the last couple days, so you know, this one's a little bit easier. Now, on the other side of things, look, if the market starts to ramp up, you know, if the market just chills out, if the Trumpster can just chill for like a couple days, the market typically goes up. When he speaks a lot, typically the market kind of goes down. So, my fellow Americans, happy Independence Day. Today, I shall not do any talk. I shall not do any talk, but I will deport anybody that drinks Heinekens or Coronas. It is Bud Light only. So we'll watch this stuff. If it starts a rebound and breaks over its MAs, we're good to go. If it don't, the longer it hangs out here, the longer it's just going to turn into a bear flag. Yeah, the FOMC is around, usually 2 p.m. So, you know, kind of that hour before, you'll start to see some choppiness, and then after the fact, you know, you'll have to see how things play out. Now, typically, the FOMC, which is, you know, like your federal market interest rate thing, typically in a bull market, it doesn't really have much impact on a month-to-month basis. But every blue moon, you just got to be careful. If there's some kind of double Lutzy that's been thrown in there, you can take down the market. So you'll have to be just a little bit careful. So around 2 p.m., if you're day trading, kind of take off some of your positions or some of your risk. 99.9% likely won't be, you know, trading around 2 p.m. Hopefully. If I have a good day, I'm not trading around 2 p.m. If it's not such a good day or I'm feeling bored, I'll probably be here. So we'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, we'll have to make sure that with the FOMC, everything's going to get good to go. Folks, it's, you know what time it is? It's game time. It is game time. Let's see what we got here. Dun, 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 dun. For Bob. All right, let's go. As always, it's been real, it's been fun, it's been fast. Hasta mañana, my friends. As always, I'll be in the chat room trading with my peoples. Hey, Danny, what's going on? I'll see you all tomorrow. If you ever need anything, catch us in the chat room.